In the late 60s and the early 1970s, it was really fashionable for churches to have bus ministries. In my home church, we got this minister who was really dynamic, and our church was dying. I grew up in a really neat town. It's a town just like Fredonia, about the same size. In fact, I had 97 people in my graduating class, and Cindy had 97 people in her graduating class here in Fredonia. And the towns are very similar, and our church just started to grow. One Easter we had 400, the next Easter we had 700. It just was really growing, and the bus ministry was bringing a lot of kids into our church, going out to different towns, and you knew all the bus drivers because they had black circles on their pants. It was from the steering wheels of those old school buses. They were getting worn out, and they all had black marks. It was their mark of honor. Hey, that guy's a bus driver, and that's a job you got if you got involved in the church helping with that work. And it was very sacrificial, and it changed our church. In fact, one Sunday morning, the guys got up here to serve, and they got ready to do communion. And some of the kids from that ministry had snuck into the auditorium, and they had drank all the communion juice. And they put the lids back on, so when the guys got up here to serve, there was nothing in there. Oh man, some people, they were struggling with all those changes. And it was ruffling the feathers of the chairman of the elders. And he just was getting pretty grumpy. He was a good man. And the minister thought, I just don't know that I'm maybe going to get in trouble over this. And so during one of his sermons, he was preaching away, and he was a very powerful preacher. The doors just flew open right there, and one of those kids came walking right down the aisle during the sermon. And that minister was like, oh man, these bus kids, they're going to be the death of me. And he came right down the aisle and sat right by the elder that hated the bus ministry. And the minister thought, I can't even think of what to say in my text, in my sermon. I'm all fouled up because I keep looking over. I know I'm going to get fired today because this man hates this program. And now this little kid, they've drank all the communion juice, they cause all the trouble. Now he sits down, disrupts the service right by the guy that hates the whole program. And so he said, we go to the meeting. He goes, I didn't want to go into this meeting. I knew it was going to be a bad meeting. And if you know ministry, it's not something that all the elders and deacons and ministers look forward to. If there's anything negative going on, you always want to avoid them, it seems like. And so he said, I dreaded it all afternoon, and I go to this meeting, and then that chairman of the elders says, I've got a few things I need to say. And he goes, oh man, I'm dying inside. This will be my last week here in Cleveland. And he said, I've hated this bus ministry ever since it started. He said that when that little kid came down here and he fell asleep and he leaned on my shoulder, it broke my heart. And he said, I'm all for the bus ministry from now on out. We need to reach every kid in this county. Wow, that was a powerful moment. What is it about the sacrifice of people that that ministry was sacrifice. I mean, you'd have to get up at 8 in the morning, go get your bus, drive it to Pawnee, drive it to Fairfax, drive it to Manford, get kids, bring them to church, get your bus ready after church. We'd feed sandwiches to the kids. I got home about 3 o'clock every Sunday afternoon. We sang songs on the bus, drove the bus, filled them up. It was a sacrificial work to be involved in the bus ministry of a church, and you didn't get all the conveniences of running out to the restaurant and doing things, but it was sacrificial. But it changed lives. Because someone asked me, and the reason I brought this up, someone asked me, when do you think it was that you felt like maybe you wanted to be a preacher? And I said, that was probably the time period in my life. I was trying to turn my life around, and that one afternoon that I've shared with you in that ministry, my town was Pawnee, Oklahoma, and I drove those kids to the reservation, and this one mother came running out, and she had a sleeveless shirt and shorts on, and she had big bruises, and her husband had been beating her. And she said, "Don't let the kids out. My husband's trying to kill me." I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go do something to your husband? She goes, "No, save my kids. Take them somewhere." I'm like, well, I can't take them home with me. I don't even live here. And I didn't know what to do. I was just an 18-year-old kid trying to help people. It was really too big of a situation for me. And I think that day when I drove home, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do in life. There were a lot of dreams and goals and things that I had searched my heart of what I really thought I might want to do. But I think that afternoon God planted the seed in my life that you need to help these kids. I became a youth minister, I think, for that reason. And I used to pray when I was a youth minister, God forbid I'd ever commit sin and become a preacher, a senior pastor. And then I did. But I really remember that ministry took a lot of sacrifice. It instilled in me that whenever you work for God, there is sacrifice involved, and that sacrifice is directly correlated to how much we love Jesus. Do I love Jesus enough to forget all of my dreams, all of my goals, step forward at a church and step into something that I have no idea where I'm going, knowing that He will take care of me if I do this, as crazy as it sounds? And I remember when I did chores this morning, reminded me of this in the dark. It was a beautiful morning this morning. It was quiet. There was no wind. It was one of those winter mornings to where the sky was just full of stars. I mean, just beautiful, black, full of stars, and cool out. And that was the same kind of morning I took a walk, and the driveway to our house was about a quarter mile long, and I was walking saying, God, this is crazy. I have no knowledge of what I'm about to do. I have no knowledge about where I'm headed. I just know that there's a conviction in my heart that I need to follow. And I need to do this. And I hope that you will be there to give me direction, because I'm going to go enroll in a school that I have never visited. I have never even been on the campus. I have just heard about it. Isn't that odd? Isn't that weird? If one of your kids said today, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to go to a school tomorrow," have you ever been there? No, but it sounds good. None of that made sense, but I have no regrets from that day forward. Every step of the way, God has taken care of me in the sacrifice that I thought I was making. And I believe that He will do that for any person that is willing to love Him enough to sacrifice for His work, to be involved in His ministry. When you look in Mark chapter 14, there is a passage of Scripture I want to share with you this morning. Now the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread were only 2 days away, And the chief priests and the teachers of law were looking for some sly way to arrest Jesus and to kill him. They had learned that the only way to stop Jesus is just kill him. We have to shut this man up. Kind of odd for the Bible college professors and the elders and deacons of their community to want to kill the preacher. Might not be the first time people have ever wanted to do that, but not during the feast, they said, or the people might riot. While he was in Bethany, reclining at a table of a man known as Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume. Made of pure nard, she broke the jar, poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. "Leave her alone," said Jesus. "Why are you bothering her? She's done a beautiful thing. The poor you will always have with you, and you can help them anytime you want, but you will not always have me. She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial." Of course, they probably had no idea what he was talking about at that moment. I tell you the truth, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted to hear this and promised to give him money, so he watched for an opportunity to hand him over. Any part of generosity, sacrifice that people make, it always seems to be understood by others. I mean, I'm one of those people. I have seen some awesome things since I have gotten into the ministry. I have met some of the neatest people I've ever met in my life in the churches where I have served. But I've also met some of the meanest. Much more good than bad. But I've seen people just do some of the craziest things. Like stand up at a board meeting and say, "How much are we short on our goal? We're short by $30,000. And the guy said, "Well, here, I'll write you a check." And I'm sitting there as a young guy going, "That guy's writing a check for $30,000? And go home and think, "That's incredible." I mean, I'm thinking of that kind of sacrifice. Or one of the guys who was vice president Cessna was one of our leaders, and somebody's car was broke down. He just threw his truck to, he goes, "Here, drive mine." I said, "He just gave that person his truck. Here, take it." And like, that guy just gave somebody his pickup truck. I mean, like, could I do that? Would I do that? I even preached a sermon on none of the things that we have belong to us. And one of the smart aleck kids in the church came up, "Hey, prom is this weekend. Can I have your truck?" Like, don't put me on the spot like this. You know, like, would I let things, you know, am I going to do what the other guy did? There's some of you kids I trust, and some of you know, well, you're not getting the truck. Okay? But you can figure that out later. But nevertheless, you know, I mean, you look at some of the sacrificial things that I've seen of time or effort. I even went calling with one of the men in my home church that was a deacon or an elder, and he said, "Man, I love going calling. I love calling on people. I love talking about the Bible. I'd do this every night of the week if my wife had let me." And I'm thinking, do I love the Lord like that? Do I love the Lord that it is fun for me to sacrifice, to do things? Is it correlated to my love for Jesus, that I love him so much that these kind of things are fun for me? How much do I love the Lord? And this woman, she was overcome. And if you look, I mean, here was a Pharisee that had opened up his home, he really was just kind of putting Jesus to the test like a lot of worldly people do Christians. They put you to the test to see if you're going to stand the test of the worldliness they're placing in front of you. This woman was not invited to this home. It's a rather odd story in a way that she loves Jesus so much, she's putting her life on the line to walk into a home where she didn't even belong because she was marked as a prostitute. She wasn't even welcome to come to this party. And she just comes on in and starts showing affection for who Jesus was because she loved him and wanted to be in his presence. This guy who had thrown the party and invited Jesus wasn't even showing the love that he should have been showing. It's odd that sometimes people, they were looking at this woman thinking, just exactly who are you, and what are you doing? And hey, hold on, what do you mean you're kissing Jesus, and what are you doing? You're anointing Jesus, and what are you doing showing affection for Jesus? She could have said, well, this is what you should have been doing. You brought him to your house. You brought him over here to make a fool out of him. I came here to show him love. But there's not this battle that you could feel the tension in the room if you were there. And isn't it interesting that the people that become indignant at her sacrifice? You know, sometimes people who have been Christians for years, who've never really done much, always get upset when a new Christian wants to be very sacrificial. Why? Because it makes us feel bad? Because that's maybe what we ought to be doing? Because we don't show any enthusiasm anymore? Are we mad at their enthusiasm? Are we mad at their sacrifice? Or if someone gives something, oh, well, now, wait a second. Where did that come from? Who do they think they are? Well, what's it matter to you? I've even said in meetings, and someone say, well, now, if somebody won this $1 billion lottery, and they came up and said, hey, we want to pay for the new building, well, now, the church, now, would we take money like that? Well, would we take gambling money to pay off our new building? I said, why not? We take money from farmers and ranchers every week. What's a greater gamble? Putting a crop, a little seed in the ground, and hoping it's going to come up? I mean, when you look at her sacrifice compared to the people in the room, some of the people were becoming indignant. Simon, he didn't like it. You're a woman of ill repute, and you don't belong in my home. What do you mean you're doing what? And then you're showing this affection for Jesus. What affection you should show? And then the person who becomes the most indignant is Judas. And he said, man, you're wasting a lot of money. And this alabaster jar was a jar that was very expensive. And some people say the prostitutes carried these little jars that contained oil. Some of them called them a flask. And it was fancy, it was ornate, it was decorated. And the men that she would have relationships with, she would use that to show affection towards the people that she had relations. How dare her bring that in here? We know what that is. And that they showed that the amount of money that alabaster jar of olive oil would have contained was about a full year's wages. So if you make $50,000 in a year, she broke a jar or used this jar of oil that cost a whole year's wages on Jesus. And Judas, being the treasurer, of the apostles and disciples, he was like, well, now that's just a waste of money for her to do something like that. You know, when I made a sacrifice to walk with the Lord, not one person ever came up to me and said, Mike, what are you doing? I don't think you ought to do this. Now, I know some people were thinking it. I know my dad had to choke it down. You know, my dad was a barber, and if you've ever been to a barber shop in a small town, it's a psychology department, it's a coaching department, it's a hunting and fishing department. If you want to learn something about the town, just go by the local barber shop. It'd take you about an hour to get a haircut in my dad's barber shop, because he would stop and run out in the street and whistle at somebody, and they would turn around and come back down the street. And you always thought there was no room to get a haircut because there were 10 guys sitting in there talking, telling hunting stories. And, you know, say, hey, what's your son doing? My son's a preacher. He's a what? Your son's a what? My son's a preacher. You know, it wasn't, hey, my son's a football player, my son's a basketball player, or, so, you know, my son's, your son's a, where did that come from, that your son is a preacher? My dad had to choke that down in a lot of stories. But he never once ever come up and said, I want you to quit doing this. And I'll never forget the first time he asked me for a prayer request. I thought maybe we were finally getting somewhere. You know, I don't know why people become indignant. I can't do what some people do when they sacrifice they do amazing things. I know we wouldn't have any of our Bible colleges if wealthy people who love the Lord hadn't given millions of dollars to start a Bible college and build $1 million buildings on campuses. We wouldn't have any of them. But someone did that. That's amazing to me. It truly is amazing that even would I do that if I had that kind of money to sacrifice it and give it for the Lord's work. And when people do these things that we witness and see, it's awesome. People have done those things here. You don't know about it because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand does. But I'm telling you what, if it wasn't for great sacrifices of a lot of people in this body of believers, you wouldn't be worshiping in a building right now. And you wouldn't have the one next door because a lot of people made a lot of sacrifices and trusted the Lord for that to happen. But Judas, he was indignant about it. His heart wasn't right. It wasn't in the right place. And we share this and say, all the disciples knew that he had been stealing out of the offering. That's just creepy. I'm not a lot of things, but I'm not a liar. And if I do something, I own it. It's not fun to choke that down and own something that you've done. But I don't lie about it. I don't debate about it. Hey, I did it, okay? All right, now what are we going to do from here? You know? But he wasn't that kind of a person. He was creepy. And they all knew that he had been stealing. I mean, what person steals from a church? What person steals from Christianity? I even read about articles of these mega churches around America that they have armed guards when they do their offering at church because gangs and people try to come in and steal from the church because they know it's a large sum of money at a church of 10,000 people this morning in that offering. What kind of creepy guys would say, hey, let's go rob a church this morning? That's going to get you in great standing with God. That's going to take you somewhere. But they knew that this had been going on. In fact, in John chapter 12, they say he didn't say this because his heart was right. It says he did not say this because he cared about the poor or about this woman, but because he was a thief. And as keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to it all the time. Kind of like when he counted money. 1 for you, 2 for me. 2 for you, 3 for me. Judas, he didn't have the right kind of love for Jesus, did he? So he thought Jesus was someone that was going to take him somewhere, bring something into his life in some way. But that wasn't what was taking place, was it? And I think that's so important that I heard even a guy say, true discipleship is being so in love with Jesus that the suffering of my sacrifice is lost in the joy of my experience. God has been so good to me. Ever since I walked down that road and talked about starting this relationship, I don't even have enough time to tell you how good God has been to me. Have there been potholes along the way? Deep ones. But every one of those has caused me to grow and to learn and to become stronger, never once ever wanting to say, no, I don't want to go any further on this journey. Never once. It's just caused me to say, how much do I love Jesus? When you look into the text, she did things that Simon should have been doing. Isn't that amazing? See, in their culture, if you brought the rabbi to your home, one of the things you would do would show a sign of kissing him. If you really adored him, you might kiss him on the hand. I know it's weird, but it was their culture. I know my stepmom is from England, and they kiss and hug all the time. You know, even if they don't like you. You know, I'm from Oklahoma. We do it if we like you. You know, if I don't like you, I'm not kissing you. You know, that's just the way it is. I'm sorry, I'm not faking it. Yeah, I guess in England they fake it. You know, and oh man, it's a family. Oh my God. You know, and just waller all over you, you know, and they're like, man, I don't even know you, dude. Don't be kissing me. You know, there's cultures like that. And you know, Simon doesn't even acknowledge Jesus when he walks in. It'd be like you coming in here in church and no one even, you know, have you ever been somewhere and you stick out your hand and shake someone's hand and they turn the other way? Oh, don't you dare. You know you saw me stick out my hand. I mean, it was like the ultimate insult in America. And that is what Simon did to Jesus, bringing him to his home. This woman, she expressed who he was. She didn't just kiss him in the normal ways. What did she do? She had tears on his feet and was wiping his feet with her tears. And then foot washing was very important in that day and time. And if you've ever been to third world countries or places like that, they give out warm rags where you can wipe all the soot or the dirt before you eat off it. I mean, you know, it was a custom, a culture like that. And people would offer foot washing. And you could either do it yourself or you could do it for someone, or if they really respected you, as Simon may have offered to do that for Jesus himself. But he didn't even offer that, which is customary to every person that would come into his home. He didn't even acknowledge him in that way. And that if you really wanted to express your love for someone, you would anoint them with an oil that just had a refreshing, soothing effect. You know, I know guys aren't this way, but women do. I mean, how many of you women have lotion in your purse? How many of you women have lotion in your purse? Don't mean think I'm crazy. How many have lotion in your vehicles? Yes. How many of you guys have lotion in yours? Yeah, maybe a couple. You know, I mean, I know. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. You know, in their culture, I mean, a lot of women, you know, women are, I just love to smell this. I got to go to Bath Baby and Beyond, and they got a sale going on in there. And you can't even sweat your senses if you go in there. I was like, I've got 5,000 fragrances going through my brain. Hey, smell this one. Which one do you like? I don't know. My brain's on fire in here. I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, my nasal passages are wide open. And you expect me to pick one out of 5,000? You know, wow. It's not happening. It doesn't matter what I say. You all are going back there again this week. But nevertheless, I mean, it just, you know, it feels good. That's why you do it. And in their culture, after in that environment of a little cleanliness, a little lotion, it was a sign of respect and dignity. Simon, he doesn't offer any of that to Jesus. Basically, it was, you know what? I don't care if you come over my house or not. In fact, if you want to leave, go ahead. This woman was a known prostitute and wore the garments and the attire to known that way because they had to signal to the community who they were. Then she comes in and expresses all of these things for Jesus that Simon, a Pharisee, a man who said he loved Jehovah God, should have been showing towards Jesus. And people become indignant. And that still happens in our world today. There's nothing wrong with loving Jesus. There's nothing wrong with sacrificing for Jesus. And if someone is indignant about that, well, I guess they'll just have to get over it. But if you love Jesus and you want to do something for Jesus, I guess they might just have to get out of the way with their indignance. And let people who love Jesus serve Jesus in a sacrificial way. Listen, if we love the Lord, there needs to be a sacrifice in our life in some way. It is not hard for me to love the Lord with all that He's done for me. It should not be hard for me to be on a cleaning schedule for the Lord with all that He's done for me. It should not be hard for me to teach Sunday school or to sing in a praise band or to serve in a church in some way because of all that He's done for me. It should not be hard for me to give to any project that needs help because of what God's done for me, because we just keep seeing the good that He's going to continue to do. There is a correlation between how much I love the Lord and my sacrifice. I know people can say, now don't you judge me by this or that. Well, we've been down that road with good or bad fruit. I recognize bad fruit when I see it. Man, I worked at a Safeway store and I had to throw away all the rotten watermelons. I recognize bad watermelons when I smell them. I got a nose like a deer. I can walk in the house and I just, man, there's a bad potato in here somewhere. Now, them potatoes were good when I bought them 3 months ago, Mike. I said, Cindy, there's a bad potato in here somewhere. I mean, I can sniff it out. I can walk into church, I can open the door, and I can say, Jason, there's a bomb in here somewhere. Someone's left a dirty diaper in this church somewhere. I will find it. You know, I mean, and start going around the building like a bloodhound until I find out what's going on. I mean, you know, and I think it's so important that we recognize good and bad fruit. And if people are upset because their fruit is not good, then change it and get good fruit. Quit bragging about bad fruit. Repent. Change. Get on the right track. If you love the Lord, bear good fruit. Is my love for Jesus explosive? Is my love deep? Am I willing to honor the Lord with my love for him? What does he tell this woman? He tells the guys, leave this woman alone. I know she's weird looking. I know she's not like all of you. But she loves me more than Simon does. She has expressed her love. Did you get that? He talked about Jesus. He had all the knowledge of all the Hebrew schools. He had been to all the rabbinical schools. He had all the scripture memorized since he was a young boy. He knew about the Bible. He knew about the Messiah coming. And the Messiah is sitting there in his house, and he doesn't even know who he is. Here's a woman who had not been living for Jesus, not been living for God, but she met Jesus and she fell in love with him. I had no business ever going to Bible college. But I fell in love with some kids on a bus ministry. And they changed my life. And my love for Jesus compelled me to go, even not knowing what would happen to my life. I was so embarrassed at Bible college. They would say things in class, and by the time I could get to the scripture, they were gone to something else. Bible college professors are so knowledgeable. They have a lot of it memorized in their head, and finally they're quoting it. They're not even turning and reading it. They've memorized it for their classroom. It's phenomenal, their education, their knowledge. I felt so small, so unworthy, but I loved the Lord. And my love for Jesus overcome that. To where I can do this. He wants me to do this. I love him and I want to express that love by doing this. Help me learn to get better at this. That's why I've always said, if I can do what I do, every one of you can be a Christian. Because a love that we have for God overtakes all the knowledge. I don't want to just talk about God. I want to know God. I don't want to talk about Jesus. I want to know Jesus. I want to be in love with Jesus. The love that we have for Jesus, like this woman, it changed all of the things. She wasn't welcome there. Jesus welcomed her there. Society said, you can't be here. Jesus said, she can be here. Leave her alone. She's expressing more love for me, Jesus said, than Simon has while I've been in his house. He's been a rude man, Jesus could have said. And this woman has been awesome. But he didn't say that. He just said, leave her alone. In fact, he says, she's done a beautiful thing. A beautiful thing. Simon's been a rude man, but this woman has been a beautiful. And to a woman who is probably downtrodden, her life has been very rough on her, I bet that was a great compliment from Jesus. She's done a beautiful thing. Today she has been a beautiful person. Because I believe that inside every person there is a beauty that God has instilled if we will just love him. And that beauty will come out in us if we will just love him like we should. In fact, he goes on, he says that this will be a legacy for her. In some of your versions, it may say a memorial. She will always be remembered as the woman that did this beautiful thing for me. I look back on those trips serving in that ministry as the praise team comes this morning, and I think, those were crazy days. Those were crazy days in those old jalopy buses and breaking down and servicing those vehicles and never going to church to some of the programs because we had to leave early and go drive late, and we missed a lot of things. Never got to be at a lot of the programs because we were out sacrificing and working so somebody else could hear the word of the Lord. And I started thinking to myself, but all that sacrifice was worth it because we were expressing our love for the Lord, and it was a beautiful thing. I guess in what we see beauty in. I think any person that has ever served the Lord in some way could get up here this morning and share about how God touched your heart in some beautiful way, and that is why you serve the Lord today. And I think that there are a lot of people that need to hear that story. There's a lot of people that need to live for that story. It's so important for us to recognize that. She did everything right, but seemed like she was living so wrong. She fell in love with Jesus. And it became a beautiful thing for her life. He said it will be a memorial for her, a legacy in all the life of Christ. And here I am preaching about it this morning. And all of Christianity, it will be a legacy for her future of what she did here today. And Judas, your legacy is going to be that you went out and you hung yourself. Who has the greater legacy? This woman? Or you, Judas? Wow, isn't that amazing? When you look at the teachings of Jesus Christ, it's powerful. Even if you feel like you're not welcome, even if you feel like this isn't for me, that Christianity doesn't want me, hey, you can fall in love with Jesus. You can fall in love with who he is and what he's all about. There's been a lot of people in this world that have never been good to me, but Jesus always has. There's been a lot of situations I've been involved in life that maybe haven't been so good to me, but Jesus always has. If I were to summarize all the things that Jesus has done for my life, it's been a beautiful thing. Probably the most beautiful thing in my life has been Jesus. And I bet you would echo and say the same thing. This morning, maybe you need to do what this woman did, fall in love with Jesus, give your life to him, and let it turn into a beautiful thing as we stand and sing.